La defensa de Buffalo le da Tampa al 1º y 10. Se la tiene Brady. Ahora se la da Fournette. Prende el 4x4. Y está corriendo. Está corriendo Lenny en la 10. 7, 5, 6. Sí, 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 sí. Sí, 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 sí. ¡Anotación para Tampa Bay!
Welcome into Training Camp Report presented by Frontier. Casey Phillips here with one half of the Spanish language broadcast duo. But of course, to all of you guys, you affectionately know him as one of the best kickers in Bucs history, Mr. Martin Gramatica. Martin, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, good morning. Thank you, Casey.
I love listening to the Spanish radio calls. That one in particular featured so many of the C's after the touchdowns. And I have to imagine that is so fun to be a part of not only to get to do Spanish radio, but to do it for the team that you played for. What has that experience been like for you?
It's been amazing. At first, I didn't know if I would like it, and the first year that I did, I said, well, let me try it out for a year, and then I'll let you know if I'll do it again. Just didn't know if I like it, and I just love it. We schedule everything around the Buc games now because I don't want to miss any of them. And working with Carlos. Carlos is by far the best play-by-play. Like the CCC, has gotten famous not only in Tampa, but the NFL takes our audio to put on their NFL network in Spanish because it's so good. So yeah, so it's been a lot of fun.
That's amazing. And what is different about doing it in the Spanish language versus English and some of the things that for people who don't listen to it in Spanish, what would they enjoy or want to know about that experience?
I think Carlos brings the Spanish flair, the excitement of like calling a soccer game. So he's never called football before this year, or before we started 5 years ago. So he just doesn't know any better other than the excitement. And I think that's where the first time the Bucs scored a touchdown and Carlos went crazy, everybody was staring at our booth. Now they're used to it, so nobody even looks anymore. They expect it. But that first time, I could see everybody's booth kind of looking like, who's those two crazy guys?
They're having so much fun.
Yeah, exactly. But that's that. Soccer. There's not a lot of goals, so you get really excited. Now in football, we take that to every touchdown, every field goal. So yeah, it's a lot of fun doing it.
And speaking of soccer, this is now going to be a part of your gig as well. Tell everybody about this new job you have.
Yes, well, the National Indoor Soccer League has a franchise in Tampa starting, and they announced it about 3 weeks ago, and I'm going to be the head coach. And I couldn't be happier. I grew up playing soccer. I love playing soccer. Coaching now, I've coached the youth for about 15 years, so this will be my first, professional coaching experience. But I just to be able to do it in Tampa with our people here, I'm super excited for it.
I mean, man, what a trifecta of a career to have played a professional sport, to now be coaching a different sport, and to be doing radio commentary for it. I think that you have definitely made a name for yourself in so many different and unique ways, which now, of course, we're going to throw up a graphic showing the way you made a name for yourself here as a kicker. This is you being clutch in the playoffs. Here were your stats in the playoffs. We had to bring it back and brag on you. So looking back at your career, what stands out to you the most about your time here, and what do you think enabled you to be this guy that in the playoffs was the automatica?
Well, I think the team and my teammates, we had such a close team that I hated to miss, just because I didn't want to let them down. Started with Coach Dungy as a coach, building that team unity, that family atmosphere. And that's the way it's been since I even left playing Tampa. And when I was on other teams, I never found a locker room as close as the ones here in Tampa. So that's why I love being back and I love being part of it. And we just always competed, and you saw it in practice. You saw it in every meeting. Everybody was alert. So it was just a winning attitude, a winning atmosphere. And as a kicker, you can't be the guy slacking or not doing your end of the bargain, because while your teammates are, beating the crap out of each other for 3 hours, you're basically sitting around working on your craft. So when it comes Sunday, they expect you to do your job, and that's what we did, because we just didn't know any better. That's what, as a rookie, that's what was embedded in me early on with guys like Sapp, Brooks, Lynch, Mike Allstott. So those guys were our role models.
And you mentioned competing in practice. There's definitely a kicker competition going on here. What is it like to be in a kicker competition? What do you think is going through these guys' minds? And what are the things that each of them brings that will make that decision hard on the coaches?
Yeah, it's not easy because, with a kicker, there's only one. So it's other positions, you can maybe not win the job, but you still have a spot in the roster. So with a kicker, there's a lot of pressure of making the team, because if not, you're unemployed, and maybe another team can pick you up, but it doesn't always happen. So there is a lot of pressure. The thing I don't like about the kicking competitions is at times when you get to the season, you're mentally and physically exhausted because you're competing every day at practice. So instead of working on your craft like Ryan Succop should be doing if he was considered the starter for sure, now he's got to compete with a young kicker that has obviously a fresh leg, a young leg, and that happened to me every time I left Tampa. And the times that I did make the team, I was physically and mentally drained because it's do or die. You make the team or you get cut. So I don't like kicking competitions for that reason, even though sometimes you need them.
You need it. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. So what are the big things that you're going to be looking at with this team as you go to call the Spanish radio? What excites you about this year and things to expect?
Well, definitely the exciting part is that number 12 is back, the unretirement. That's and then all the weapons. It's so nice to have all these weapons and just have players that are popular around the country, not just in Tampa. So just to see these superstars and then to be able to, we're thinking this might be Tom Brady's last year, so that's what excites us, to know that he needs to go out on top. He deserves to go out on top after everything he's done in his career. So that's basically what we're looking at. We need to have a good start early and just get momentum from there. And then this is a very dangerous team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are all looking forward to hearing some of that call from you and to maybe going to see some of these soccer games. I know I want to come check one out.
Oh, let me know. Let me know. Yes, yeah. I want all our Buccaneer fans come on. Fill it. It's going to be at the Yingling Center at USF, so we've got plenty of room to fill it up.
I love it. Let's all do it, Bucs fans. Let's show Martin some love. Well, Martin, thank you so much for joining us. As always, you are great to have on here, and we're going to take a look at Week 2 camp highlights before we're back with more Training Camp Report presented by Frontier.
Don't have no fear. It ain't welcome here.
I don't think there's any excuses, You either get the job done or you don't. So, there's only one team that's really happy at the end of the year.
Strength at our core.
Hey, let's get it, fellas. Let's come out here and show everybody what we made of, man. We the hardest defense, man. Let's show everybody.
Once you're getting past, the bigger guys start to show up.
I played on some pretty good teams, and, one thing you got to do is strike while the iron is hot.
Our wide receiver room is crazy.
And Julio's smart mentally.
Huge, looks like a tight end, runs like Scotty.
Let's get some plays today. DB's on 3, 1, 2, 3. DB's.
He's got his big 45th coming up this week. Anything special planned for him?
As long as we keep him upright and he's walking, it's a great birthday.
I don't know, me, I give him a cake. Yeah, I'm just, whatever you like.
I watched Vita long before I got here.
Remind you of anybody you've played alongside before?
No, one-on-one, right?
Chris looks good.
Good seeing him out there running around, getting some individual work in, so it's always a plus when he's in uniform.
We got to come out here. We got to be ready to go. When the ball come our way, we got to make the play. It's on us, and we got to hold that.
We're gonna be legendary.
Welcome back into Training Camp Report presented by Frontier. And Casey Phillips here with senior writer and editor Scott Smith. You keep having to follow these guests, man.
It's not fair, man.
It's not fair.
It's not fair at all.
I mean, Automatica, it's a little hard to follow that guy.
He pointed out, see, I came up with those numbers for that graphic about his clutch kicking in the playoffs, and I didn't see the graphic before it went up, but apparently it had him in jersey number 10. He's like, you should have had me in 7.
Yes.
So, sorry about that.
So there we go. This is our way of saying on there.
He should have been 7.
Should have been 7.
He is the 7.
Forever number 7, number 1 in our hearts.
There you go.
So, all right, let's take a look at our Ticketmaster play of the day from yesterday. We got Tom Brady, as we do so often. And now, this is interesting. Great pass here. Good catch on the sideline to Jalen Darden. And this is a guy that it's going to be so interesting to see where he could fit in this wide receiver room. He is one of the guys vying for one of those few coveted spots between your set guys at the top.
Yeah.
Do you feel, and for him, I mean, it seems like obviously the special teams role will be the thing that gets him on the roster or not. And does it feel like his to lose because he's sort of the incumbent?
Yeah, and I think so. And a little earlier in camp, Jason Lai was talking. He said that Jalen's much improved this year, and he was talking about his return work. And he had some nice returns last year, just not as many as you would expect. So, and he didn't keep the job for the whole year either. So it was a little bit up and down. But yeah, I think that would obviously be the thing that secures his spot. But I think he's also doing better as a receiver. I think there's a chance if he makes the roster that he could have more of a role than he had last year when he only played about 25 snaps all year. You saw that catch there. He's known more, I think, for his lateral quickness and his open field shiftiness, but that was a nice up there. I mean, he got up for that pass on that out to the sideline. So, he's not the biggest receiver, but maybe he can play a little bigger than he is. And one more thing about the play of the day. Can we get a defensive play of the day one of these days?
I know.
I mean, I think we're about to talk about it, but Lavonte David had a really nice interception yesterday.
He did. It's so funny that I think whenever it's training camp, sometimes it's like hard on any play of the day, because does it mean that the other side didn't have a great moment?
Right.
And it's always somehow easier to pick an offensive one and people will just be excited about that.
Just show the interception. Just started with the ball already in the air, so we don't
even know who threw it.
Right?
So we're not shaming anybody. But yes, to your point, Lavonte David has had a couple pretty great interceptions in camp so far, and I know that's something that the defense overall is really emphasizing, but it also feels like Lavonte and Devin in particular have really talked about wanting to bring out some more big plays.
Lavonte's pass coverage metrics last year were still very, very good. I mean, he's been one of the better coverage linebackers for a long time now, but both him and Devin White have been talking all throughout the offseason about how they think they're guys that should be providing splash plays. And last year, that just didn't happen a lot for either one of them. And one of the things that Lavonte's always been great at is tackles for loss, and he just didn't have a lot of those last year. And I know both of those guys, Devin's talked about a lot too, they want to get back to putting up splash plays like right there. And, Lavonte David is just so good at forcing fumbles. That's one of his one of the best things in his repertoire. And really, since he came in the league, he's one of the leaders in a lot of what you would call splash plays or game-changing plays. I thought we had a graphic for this. I was trying to lead into it there.
His NFL rank. Well, I know we talked about him and Logan.
There we go.
There it is.
Boy, we're just running seamlessly today. I am. So look at that. Tackles, obviously, he gets a lot of tackles every year. But tackles for loss is the one he's second in run stuffs, which is stopping a runner behind or at the line of scrimmage. Forced fumbles, he's way up there. Fumble recoveries, he just has a knack for the ball. But the tackles for loss, 133 in his career in 10 years. That's a lot. That's more than 13 a year. Ranks 5th in the league, but that's misleading because if you look at the top 20 over the last decade, every other player in the top 20 is a pass rusher, is a sack, an edge rusher, or an Ndamukong Suh or an Aaron Donald, because every time you get a sack, you also get a tackle for loss. And that's where they're getting all their tackles for loss. When you talk about an off-ball linebacker not getting a lot of sacks, he's number one in tackles for loss. He's that guy that starts in the middle and maybe they run wide, and all of a sudden he has the perfect angle and he gets to that guy before he can get around the corner and gets him down for like a 1 or 2 yard loss. That's the kind of thing that Lavonte wants to get back to this year.
Well, and we talked about this in terms of why he didn't get the Pro Bowl love or even the league-wide love that we all knew he deserved, and it's because he was competing against, like you mentioned, these outside linebackers that you'd see these numbers, and that's why he wouldn't get a spot, because they didn't always differentiate when it came to Pro Bowl voting and all of that. And so it's where the idea of the appreciation nationwide or the things like Pro Bowls are very different than the actual impact that he has, that I know that as much as we all want him to get more of those honors, everybody that matters, especially within this building, knows the kind of player that he is.
It's kind of just water under the bridge at this point. It's just you have to accept it. He's just not, because of circumstances, he's just not going to get the Pro Bowl. He's got it one time. He was All-Pro first team in 2013 and All-Pro second team in 2020, I believe, and neither time was he in the Pro Bowl. And the All-Pro is a way more selective honor than the Pro Bowl. So it's just, like you said, for a long time, he was always losing out his spots to the edge rushers like Shaq Barrett, outside linebacker they're called, and then he moves to inside linebacker technically in this 3-4 defense, and there's only 2 of those per conference, and you've got Bobby Wagner and even his own teammate Devin White taking Pro Bowl spots. It's just, at this point, I'm sure he would like to have a lot more Pro Bowls, but at this point we're just resigned to the fact that that's not what's going to define his career.
Right, and also as we show footage of practice going on, we haven't shown Lavonte. We think he is probably having a vet day.
A vet day, all right.
So we do know that is not Lavonte. We keep showing Devin just because if we're talking about Lavonte, that's the next most relevant thing. But no,
get a day off.
Yes, exactly.
It was a really nice play. He read the play, he undercut the route, just caught it going forward, and couldn't, depending upon where other receivers were, that looked like it could have been a pick six in a game.
Yeah, it's going to be so interesting to watch him and Devin this year. Just again, of like the whole defense of hopefully having more of that continuity, so many injuries happened that threw things off last year. I just think that I'm very excited to watch some of those splash plays like you talked about, and the way that we talked about Logan Ryan and Lavonte being so similar in the fact that they get stats that someone at their position isn't always supposed to get.
Yeah, we had that graphic when we were talking about Logan Ryan.
Yeah, where the two of them were two of
top
five since 2013 and getting 10-plus sacks, forced fumbles, and interceptions, I think.
That's pretty cool.
That is an unbelievable thing. Do you feel like when it comes to Lavonte and Devin and getting more of those splash plays, that's one of those things that's easy to say. What do you think are the things that would actually help them produce that? What are some things that you felt like you saw that they weren't doing or where they were close to getting it?
The main thing is health. We know Lavonte had some injuries, like the knee injury that he was dealing with last year, and he wasn't really 100% for a good portion of the year. And when he was out, the Bucs kind of changed their defense a little bit to make up for it, because Kevin Minter was a good fill-in the last 3 years, but he's not Lavonte David, and so you couldn't do the exact same things you would with Lavonte on the field. So there was more cover two, there was more Devin White playing in a role that didn't lend itself to big plays. And then also, I think what could help is if you just are even better up front. I mean, the more you got Akeem Hicks and Vita Vea and Will Golston, big guys who can occupy multiple blockers, and the more that you can keep those blockers from getting to the second level and chipping at a linebacker, the freer those guys are to run around. So health and really good play up front would help them unlock their big plays, I think.
All right, well, we have one more segment coming up, and we are actually going to look ahead to these joint practices with Miami and some storylines to watch there. But for now, we're going to take a break and do a Meet the Rookies with Zion McCullum.
Zion McCullum, defensive back, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Well, I was actually born in McKinney, which is near Dallas, but our mom moved me and my twin brother down to Galveston. We were there for 8 years, and I mean, it was great. I loved every bit of it. It's a small island. It's a real, tight-knit community. Everybody knows everybody. It was just my mom and my twin brother, really just the three of us. We were into outdoorsy stuff a lot. I mean, fishing, hiking, running, all type of stuff, playing basketball. I mean, I loved having a twin brother. I'm so blessed to have a twin brother. I wish everybody had their own twin. I mean, we love sports. We owned golf clubs, we owned bats, and we didn't even play golf in high school or ever, and we didn't play baseball, but I mean, we would find an open field and just try to just do new stuff. I started playing football in Little League. I played for a team called the Riptides. At the time, I didn't really know too much about football. I think I played fullback at the time, and then corner. I was really small. I was always really small growing up. I was a late bloomer, but the more that I grew as a person, as a man, and I started to get more intelligent and more wise, I started to understand, like my why in terms of playing, and it really just grew my passion for it. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'm trying to be the best version of myself in really everything, whether it's a combine drill, on the field or off the field. I'm just gonna keep growing and keep getting better and better. I'm here to, get everybody better and to up the competition and to just keep going, but definitely grow as a family, because, the closer that we can get and the more trust we have with each other, then the faster we can fly around as DBs on the field. And, we have to be able to work together to really, play at a high level.
I think it was back in 2016 or 17 when I went to watch him play in high school. And he's a good player then, he's improved, and he's doing his thing right now.
Seeing him and how he just gives back to the community, and he comes back to play in the teacher-student basketball game. Of course, he's on the teacher side, and they always win because it's a bunch of old people around. Then you got Mike Evans dunking on people. But, I mean, it's just great. It's definitely somebody that I look up to. And not only as a player, but really just as a person, for everything that he just gives, for him to just take it all in and then perform like he does on the field, it's inspiring.
Welcome back to Training Camp Report presented by Frontier. Casey Phillips here with senior writer and editor Scott Smith. Time for our final segment here. You just got a chance to meet Zion McCullum, one of our new rookies. Great guy. I know you guys had him on Salty Dogs just yesterday, so everybody needs to check that out. And also congrats to him. He just got engaged recently. So many good things happening in his life.
You know how he did it?
The 5:30 in the morning crossing the Florida border, right?
Yeah, they drove from Texas to Florida, and I've never done this, but they would stop and get out and take a picture with the sign whenever they crossed a new state border.
I love that.
And she was taking a selfie, and he got down on his knee, and so by the Florida sign, by Welcome to Florida, when she turned around, he was ready.
That's adorable.
That's pretty cool,
I love that. And again, if you're saying yes to a proposal at 5:30 in the morning, you love this person. I'm convinced that is true love right there.
So if you want to hear more about that and other stuff about him, listen to the Salty Dogs
Salty
podcast.
Dogs. I also love that the Salty Dogs had to talk about love, and the whole point of the title is that you're
really,
salty.
Doesn't
and
fit,
here you go.
right?
Doesn't fit,
Believe
but
me,
I like
Jeff
it.
and I subsequently got a little bit salty.
Of course, as guaranteed to be. All right, well, let's look ahead at these joint practices because this is our last one of these shows before those begin because tomorrow is actually a player day off for the team. So looking at Miami coming in here, what are some of the things that you think are going to be really good about joint practicing against them leading up to this preseason game and some of their key additions that they have added to keep an eye on?
Well, any joint practices, I think, are very beneficial. You get pretty much twice the work because you're going to have offense versus defense and then the opposite of that on the two fields next to each other. And just, players want to go against somebody else and coaches want to go against unknown opponents. So by now our defense probably has a good idea what our offense is trying to do. So it'll be nice to go up against others. And every team in the league has some challenges that they're going to present to you. And the Dolphins have been borderline contenders the last couple of years, but they've made a lot of really big changes this year to try to get over the top. One, they have a new head coach. Obviously, they let go of Brian Flores and they brought in Mike McDaniel as the head coach, and he's considered a pretty good offensive mind. Biggest thing, they traded for Tyreek Hill. So now you have Tyreek Hill, you have Jalen Waddle. I mean, those are two really quick, shifty, fast guys that are hard to cover. So that'll be really quite a challenge for our cornerbacks and our safeties. And then they really needed to do something about their offensive line. It's been a bit of an issue the last couple of years. Huge signing in Teron Armstead. Also got Connor Williams from the Cowboys. They should be much improved on the offensive line. We've obviously had a lot of work against Teron Armstead with the Saints through the years, know how good he is. So for our pass rushers, it'll be a good test for them, especially the guys on the edges.
If I'm not mistaken, Tyreek Hill was the victim of Antoine Winfield's peace sign move.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but then there were also some times that Tyreek Hill definitely,
well, that year,
it came from him giving the peace sign to us.
That year he had that just insane first quarter in the regular season victory by the Chiefs over the Buccaneers at Raymond James Stadium. Obviously, the Bucs got the revenge, and so did Antoine. Yeah, so when Tyreek was running into the end zone on one of his 6 or 7 touchdowns that day, he did the peace sign thing. Didn't get flagged for it, notably.
Yes.
And Antoine gave it back to him at the end of the Super Bowl and did get flagged.
But I think
well
he would say worth it. Yeah, I think he would.
It's one of my favorite images from the Super Bowl.
That was incredible. Yeah, so I know that is definitely a guy that our DBs will be excited to face in joint practices, which is always fun to kind of up the ante a little bit here in training camp.
And the really interesting story about the Dolphins that we're going to get a first up close look at it is Tua Tagovailoa the guy, right?
Yep.
And that's they've made his offensive line better. They've hired a really great offensive mind, and they traded for Tyreek Hill. So you're going to find out, and that's the big storyline for the Dolphins this year. Is he? I think he was the 5th overall pick. Is he the quarterback of the future? And I think this is the season that's going to tell them yes or no. And so it's going to be kind of cool to see it in action.
And what do we know about who will and won't be playing in that preseason game against Miami in terms of who we're going to see them against in practice and maybe not see them against in the actual game?
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady, speaking of which.
And that's a good point that we should bring up. I think teams are really trending towards these joint practices. For one thing, you only have 3 preseason games instead of 4, and it's just a really good way to get in scripted work because you can't necessarily know what scenarios you're going to get in a game. What comes, but in a practice you could script specific scenarios, and you can have your starters in there running at full speed against their starters.
And still not have your quarterback be getting hit.
And your quarterback will not get hit, I mean, unless somebody really messes up. But that's the rule. So you can get all that great work in. So Tom Brady doesn't even need to play in the game because he's already got the good work the first 2 joint practices. And I think there will be a handful of veterans who will be in the same group. Todd Bowles said they're not actually going to decide that until Friday after the joint practices on Wednesday and Thursday when they see who got reps and how it went and all that. But my suspicion is there will be quite a few veterans who aren't playing in that game.
All right, well, that is going to do it for us on this edition of Training Camp Report presented by Frontier. Again, tomorrow is an off day for the players, so it will also be an off day for this show, but then we'll be back here on Tuesday with those joint practices happening this week against the Dolphins, so come back then.